Welcome everyone and welcome to today's video. We are going to have a little debrief of the Bahrain Grand Prix as it is now finished, the first race of the 2023 season, and well, what an ominous display that was from Red Bull. I think everyone thought they was going to win this race and it was potentially going to be a 1-2 anyway. That was on pretty much everyone's predictions, but doing it in the manner in which they did, Max finished 40 odd seconds ahead of the next team, which was Fernando Alonso in third, and a good 12 to 13 seconds ahead of Sergio Perez. And well, they've picked up exactly where they left from last year. And for us neutrals, that's not necessarily a good thing, because we could quite potentially see the most dominant season ever. I mean, we all thought 2022 was a dominant season, but wow, I mean, it looks like no one's even close to him. Of course, there's a long way to go, 22 races remaining, but the perfect start for Max and for Red Bull. Sergio Perez couldn't quite keep up with Max's pace, to be expected, as we all know, but yes, the perfect start from them, rounding off a 1-2 to start the season. Now, Fernando Alonso, thank God for Fernando Alonso, because this race, in my opinion, it wasn't all that. If it wasn't for Alonso, I think it would have been a bit of a damp squib, and we would have thought it would have been difficult to have picked out really where the battles and the overtakes were going to happen on the track, because he did a job today, that is for sure, fighting his way through George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, and even surviving a tag from his own teammate on the first lap. So very fortunate that his race was even able to continue, both of them, to be fair. But Aston Martin, a great start to the season for them, and Fernando at 41 years old, just finishing on the podium, thanks to obviously Charles Leclerc, who we'll get to shortly. But what a result for him, and great to see that finally one of the midfield teams, or one of the teams outside the big three, has actually broken through. So yeah, it should be an interesting season ahead with him in the mix. Now, Carlos Sainz in Ferrari, in fourth. That Ferrari. So let's touch quickly on Ferrari, because they had a shocker with the reliability. Already had to change Charles Leclerc's battery before the race even started. Bearing in mind, you're only allowed 2 per season. So to change that before it's even started the first race of the year never bodes well. And then, of course, just the tyre deck. Now, of course, a lot of the headlines are going to be about reliability with Ferrari. And, of course, to win, first you need to finish, as they say. But the tyre degradation on the Ferrari, there was talks about whether it was going to be as high as it was last year with their car, but it seems like it's carried over from last season, and that is not good, because as we know, the Red Bull is pretty much a perfect car all round, really good on the tyres. And what I noticed is that specifically the first stint, Charles Leclerc pitted earlier than Max on the soft tyres. Now, this wasn't to do an undercut, I don't think. I think this was genuine degradation, because Max on used tyres was able to just pull away from Charles, and Sergio Perez was obviously under pressuring Charles. So he come into the pits early, and then they pitted them early on the hard tyre as well. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is due to tyre degradation or if this was just them solidifying and protecting themselves from a potential undercut from Fernando Alonso, but he was so far back at the time that I don't really see him as being a threat. I think it was genuine degradation in the hard tyre, and Max and Sergio just went on with the soft tyre. So it seems like they're still being plagued by those issues, and that's going to make it very difficult for them to even compete for wins against Red Bull, because they may have the pace over a single lap like they did last year, but when it comes to a race scenario, they're just not going to last a distance, especially if they can't even get their cars to finish towards the end across the line. Now, Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton in P5 with George Russell being split by Lance Stroll, who did an absolute mega job. Lance Stroll, it was announced over the weekend that he was actually racing with a broken toe, as well as, of course, a wrist that had been had surgery on recently. So a brilliant result for him, and the fact that he was able to split the two Mercedes doesn't bode well for Mercedes, because he's not even fully fit. If he's fully fit and had actual testing in this car and had spent the time in it as Fernando Alonso had, that could have been the most comfortable third and fourth position that we had seen from any kind of team outside the top three. So yeah, it doesn't really bode well for Mercedes, who of course have their own issues that have carried over from last year. The pole position's gone, but just not got a quick enough car. Simple as. That is pretty much it. So P5 for Lewis is probably as best as it was going to get. And George Russell in P7, yep, just couldn't make the time up on the Aston Martin. Bad day at the office for Mercedes all round. And being a Mercedes fan, it's going to be a long year. A very long year for them, unless they can bring some magic upgrades. But it sounds like the whole concept is just completely wrong. That's just not including the no side pods. That means everything as a whole, by the sounds of it, with Toto Wolff. It's almost like they've written off this year already. Because of the cost cap, they can't just go and throw money at it like they used to. So, yeah, going to be a tough year if you're a Mercedes fan. But who knows? Stranger things have happened in F1, guys. Stranger things have happened. Now, we have one of the drivers of the day. Now, I think it's fair to say that Fernando Alonso is the driver of the day, rightfully so. But there's a few other candidates here who I think deserve a mention. And if you was to list who your top drivers of the day were, this man would definitely be in that top three, and that is Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo, finishing in 8th position. What a result for him. He pretty much went understated throughout the whole race. A lot of the race he was running on his own, and towards the end, yes, his tyres started to fall off, and because of the virtual safety car, Pierre Gasly, who we'll mention in a second, was chasing him down on a set of soft tyres compared to worn hards. He did manage to hold him off, and an absolute great result to start the year. 4 points for Alfa Romeo, and that could really mean a lot to them when it comes to the end of the season. And here we go. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine in 9th position, 11 places gained. He started 20th place, guys. It was looking all so gloomy for Pierre yesterday after qualifying, and for him to helped with a bit of strategy from Alpine, bringing him in early while there was a DRS train forming. He was around 18th position. He made up about 4 or 5 places, can't remember off the top of my head, but considerable amount of places in a short period of time in the first round of pit stops. So in clean air, the Alpine isn't too bad. It's got a bit of pace, but in a train, it just doesn't seem to have enough to get past the cars that you'd expect it to breeze past. But getting it to 9th position, he had to do the business out on track as well, and nearly chased down Valtteri Bottas on the last lap. So that could have easily been an 8th position if there was one more lap available to him. But 2 points, 9th position, 11 places gained. He's definitely just behind Fernando Alonso in regards to my driver of the day. Now, 10th, Alexander Albon. Albono, you absolute beast of a man. He was driving that extra wide Williams today, because he, for about 20 odd laps in the middle of the race after the second round of pit stops, led a 3-car train, and that was of himself, Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, and neither of them could overtake him. And he didn't have DRS. That is how good that Williams was this weekend. And you know what? There was so much talk about Williams being the team that was going to be the slowest car. Lots of people writing them off before the race or the weekend had even begun after testing. And for them to have a car in 10th place, get a point, first race of the year, and it was quite unfortunate that he didn't even get an opportunity to qualify for Q3. There's a potential there that he could have made it through to Q3. But with some technical issues, he wasn't able to have a run at it. But yeah, 10th position there, a great result for Williams, and them getting points on the board straight away. And with a mention of Williams, Logan Sargent, another one who was being written off before this race had even started. But predictions of him probably finishing at the bottom of the point standings at the end of the year. And yes, while he hasn't scored a point today, him taking that to 12th position, and looking very comfortably while doing so, is a great start to the year for him and should be a massive confidence booster. Yuki Tsunoda in 11th position in the AlphaTauri, a car that also has got some unfair criticism, really, or should I say fair criticism, but another one where the data doesn't suggest it's actually that good of a car. Is actually done a great job today. I've always been a harsh critic of Yuki, and this year is definitely an important year for him. He has to beat Nick De Vries. That is a given. If he doesn't over the course of a season, I think he might lose his seat for sure. It's his third year now. He is the leader of the AlphaTauri. He's the more experienced driver. And yeah, I mean, he only just missed out on points from Alex Albon, finishing just a second behind him. But yeah, just got stuck in that train and couldn't get ahead of Alex throughout the race. But 11th in that AlphaTauri, only just finishing behind the Williams in the first race of the season. Similar to Logan Sargent, must be a great confidence booster for him, and quite considerably finishing a few places ahead of his teammate Nick De Vries as well. Now in 13th position we have Kevin Magnussen. Kevin, well, he had a very difficult race. He started on the hard tyre. I assume Haas were trying to predict that there was going to be a safety car. He was the only one at the start of the race to start on the hard tyre. Everyone else started on softs, and the race just didn't come to him. So clearly Haas didn't think they had the race pace and were hoping for something out of their control to happen. It didn't, and unfortunately, yeah, he wasn't really able to recover. He did finish in 13th position, which isn't too bad when he started down the bottom of the pack, but yeah, not a great day at the office for Haas. 14th was Nick De Vries. An overall solid start to the season, 5 positions gained. He did start in 19th position, but yeah, nothing really too much to talk about there. Quite comfortably beaten all weekend by his teammate. That is really the relative for Nick De Vries this year, to beat Yuki Tsunoda. If he doesn't, or if he's far off of him, then his F1 opportunity may be gone and done in one season. I really don't hope so though, because I think he's a good driver. 5 places though isn't anything to scoff at in regards to positions gained. And 15th, Nico Hülkenberg had an absolute shocker at the track today. He started in 10th position and at one point was like nearly dead last. He had I think he got contact in the first lap, picked up some wing damage. Haas picking up front wing damage once again. Maybe they are just truly flimsy compared to everyone else. And yeah, unfortunately dropped down the pack and they had to change his front wing. It was only then that he really started to pick up any sort of pace. But by then it was a bit too late in the race. 15th place, a poor day, really, when it came to the race day for Nico, because overall he had good practice sessions and he had a great qualifying. So yeah, real unfortunate for him. But that's what it is. You have to keep your car clean, don't you? Otherwise, you have all that hard work that has led up to the race can be gone in an instant. In 16th position is Guan Yu Zhu. He got fastest lap, so that's something, putting on the soft tyres at the end of the race. But yeah, a bit of a up and down race for him this weekend. Couldn't stay with his teammate Valtteri. So there is potential in that Alfa Romeo. He needs to obviously just extrapolate that. And this year as well, there's going to be a little bit more scrutiny on him because he's not a rookie anymore. So yeah, not great for him, but I suppose fastest lap is a bit of confidence to take away, isn't it? And then McLaren. Lando Norris, last of the finishers. Oh, do we need to say any more? Piastri was the first to retire with a technical issue. Wasn't particularly doing too great anyway when he was running. I think he was down in like 16th position. And then, yes, Lando actually got the technical issue of himself first before Piastri even retired. After his first pit stop, he had an engine issue which looked like he was going to retire because he went slowly for a good half a lap or so. And then they managed to kick itself into gear. And yeah, that allowed him to finish the race. He finished 2 laps down. I'm assuming McLaren wanted him to finish the race to probably gather data. They just used it as a test session. Sometimes that's the case of what these teams do, especially when they've got one driver that is already retired very early on. But yeah, Lando did come onto the interviews afterwards and said his car actually, when it was working, wasn't as bad as what people thought. It was just that engine issue, which unfortunately dropped him further down the pack after the first pit stop. And then they were just, forever playing catch up, or they couldn't catch up from then on. But another Bahrain race for them to forget. Last year wasn't good, and this year as well. And Esteban Ocon, the last one to mention here, really, because Esteban had about a year's worth of penalties. he started too far forward in his pit box, in his grid slot position. So that's a 5-second penalty. Then when he came and served that, the team started working on the car before the 5-second penalty was done. So that was an extra 10-second penalty. And then he got another 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane because he locked up and entered the pit lane too quickly. So, not surprised they retired Esteban in the end, because he was just languishing at the back of the grid, even behind Lando Norris, because Lando overtook Esteban out on track. And yeah, they've just decided to retire the car and save the engine and all the parts. But yeah, it was just every notification from the FIA was penalty for Esteban, investigation Esteban, penalty Esteban Ocon. It was, if anything, you thought Pierre Gasly starting in 20th position was going to be the Alpine that struggled today, but clearly it was Esteban. And to be fair, a lot of it, if it is of his own accord. Starting too far forward in your grid position is just a no-no, isn't it, really? That's just kind of basic, simple things. But I'm sure he'll come back strong in the next race in Saudi Arabia. And then, actually, Charles Leclerc is the last person we need to mention. The last one of the non-finishers. It's hard being a Charles Leclerc fan. I'm not an out-and-out fan. I'm not an out-and-out Ferrari fan, but I do support Charles. I do like him. I like him as a personality and as a driver. And while he was never going to challenge the Red Bulls today, he doesn't have the car. Come on, Ferrari. Give this man some confidence, please, and give him some hope that he might be able to win a world championship, because you're just destroying him. I mean, the battery to start off with, being replaced at the start, as we mentioned, and then just an unknown engine issue has caused him to just pull over about 3/4 into the race. So a real shame for him, that already puts him 25 points behind Max Verstappen. So yeah, it doesn't bode well, does it? Red Bull winning as ominously as they did, and to be honest, Charles Leclerc, who, other than Sergio Perez, who realistically we know is never going to have an opportunity to go toe-to-toe with Max and win the World Championship. Charles Leclerc is the only other one who's probably going to take it to Max, and he's already a race win behind. It's not great. It's not great, is it, guys? But yeah, I'm going to sum up this race with thank God for Alonso, because I think, to be honest, this race was a bit of a damp squib, as we said at the start. If it wasn't for him and his manoeuvres out on track and the battle with Mercedes and then overtaking Sainz, I think this would have been a bit of a boring race. So thank God for him. Yeah, here's hoping that Saudi Arabia is better and some teams make improvements between now and then. But yeah, lastly, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who turned up for the watch along, because we hit over 750 peak viewers. We got nearly 100 subscribers in the stream, over 11,000 views. So I just want to say a big thank you to you all. I'm glad you enjoyed them. I really enjoyed doing them as well, and we will be back for Saudi Arabia for the next watch along. So thanks, guys. Have a lovely rest of your day, evening, week, wherever you are in the world. Hit that like and subscribe button, turn those notifications on, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye.